Conclusion of Chapter 8. When we stepped into the auditorium, expecting to see the gleaming white walls, beautiful chandeliers, and blue carpet, we gasped in shock. A thick darkness, oily and black, filled the room. The chandeliers were dimmed, a murky yellow, and the blue backlit cross at the rear of the sanctuary seemed to be shrouded in a cloud of darkness. Later that day, Tim described the room as if bands of thick darkness streamed through the auditorium. I had never seen this church look so dark. In retrospect, I now realized that we had finally seen this church on a Sabbath day, and it could no longer hide beneath its Sunday best veneer. My wife's dream, at first a mystery, started to resolve with greater clarity. As we strode down the center aisle toward the pulpit, the pastor and his wife greeted us. His eyes looked bloodshot, and it was clear he had not shaved in a week. "Please take a seat." "I think we would prefer to stand," I said. "Very well," he said, smiling gently. "Pastor, if you don't mind, I'm just going to tape record this conversation," Grant said as he took out the device from his pocket. "Abomination! Abomination! Abomination!" he suddenly yelled. "Get out! All of you, get out! Get out of here!" Realizing the situation was quickly escalating out of control, I turned to Grant. "Just put it away, Grant. We don't need it." I turned back to the pastor, my eyes pleading with him. "Pastor, please. I just want to know what line I crossed. What is going on here?" "You are an abomination causing desolation on the altar, Daniel. An abomination." I glanced at Philip, and we exchanged a "what kind of drugs is this pastor taking" type of look. "You need to leave. You all need to leave. Just leave right now." The pastor pointed his finger behind us toward the exit. I looked at the pastor right in the eye, realizing I was dealing with a devilish force, and very clearly said, "No." As soon as I uttered that word, both the pastor and his wife began to hop up and down, eyes wide and frantic. "Call the police! Call the police! We need to call the police!" I shook my head in disgust and turned toward the exit. "This is ridiculous. We're not getting anywhere. Let's go, guys." As we began to leave the darkened sanctuary, the pastor's wife rushed toward us, wagging her finger. "Every Sunday you come in here, testifying about how you preach all across the city, making us feel bad for not joining you. All you do is fill us with guilt. Guilt. That's all you do." I stopped near the entrance of the church, shocked, as the pastor's wife continued to launch a full tirade against us. I couldn't believe that all the times we had honestly and innocently testified of how God had used us in preaching, she had taken it as us guilting her. None of it made any sense. We stepped out of the church onto the porch, and the bright sunlight starkly reminded us of how dark it had been inside. From a door below the porch that led into the church basement and fellowship hall, the newcomer stuck his head out, a wicked grin on his face. Reaching the parking lot, Tim, his red beard flying in the wind, turned his burly truck driver frame toward the small church. It had been Tim who had introduced us to this church almost 2 years ago. "Ichabod! Ichabod! Ichabod!" he declared, pointing his finger into the sky. "The glory has departed this place." As we climbed into our cars, I heard police sirens begin to wail all around us. The police had not been called by the pastor or his wife. There had been no time, but the spiritual realm, disrupted by this clash, was manifesting in the physical. "You will be beaten with many stripes," the pastor called out from the church. "By your own words you will be condemned," I shouted back. As I looked through the windshield of my car, I will never forget the image that has indelibly printed itself into my mind. Standing in the sparkling sun, the black pastor stood on the porch of his whitewashed tomb of a church. He smiled, his hands folded in front of him. The sun was so bright, his black skin seemed to radiate a glorious halo glow. His smile only grew, and an otherworldly peace seemed to hang over him in a brilliant aura. Then the voice of the Creator of the heavens and the earth thundered in my heart. "Remember this, Daniel. Remember what he looks like. This is exactly how the anti-Messiah and his followers will appear. Exactly." We drove away into that beautiful winter's day, a day on which we would later preach and testify to the lost. But I would never forget that first encounter I ever had with the spirit of Jezebel. Yah was preparing me for the final years on planet Earth, teaching me how to, ever so clearly, identify how the angel of light would manifest at the end of the age.